Tim, we've got a lot of calls at the office over the last several weeks. People have noticed that their power bills are higher than usual, and there's a number of factors that have come together to cause that. Let's talk a little bit about what's causing power bills to be higher right now.
Well, it's a combination of things. First of all, we've had a hot summer. It's weather. We've had a hot summer, and the hot summer began earlier than it has in the last few years. The other factor is the high cost of natural gas. Natural gas is one of the components in the generation that TVA provides to us, the power that is provided to us, and those prices have almost tripled in the last few months. And so, we're seeing it on both of those sides. And then the other problem is timing. TVA made some estimates of what they thought the weather was going to be, and it turned out that it was not that way, and that's deeply impacted the prices.
And I know one of those estimates, you talked about it being hotter in June than it normally is.
Yes.
And TVA usually does maintenance on their power plants during the springtime in advance of having everything online and working during the hottest parts of the year. And that's one of the factors that came into play with those hotter temperatures in June.
That's exactly right. You want to do maintenance on, and we do it here at Coleman Electric, we try to do the maintenance on of our equipment when it's not really hot or really cold. And that's for obvious reasons, because if you've got facilities down, you don't want to put people out, and you don't want it to be during very cold periods of time or very hot periods of time. TVA does the same thing with their generation plants. TVA power production is about 40% from nuclear. There are three main nuclear plants on the TVA system. One of them is Browns Ferry, which is here in North Alabama, just across the Tennessee River.
Right.
And then there are two in Tennessee. One of those plants in Tennessee had to have a long maintenance window to work on their reactor and to do some just general maintenance. It was going to take a long time to do it. It was about a 120-day window that they were going to have to work in to get that maintenance done. They made a bet. They looked at the past weather and what it's been like, and we've had cool Junes the last few years until this year. And so they bet that they would be better off pushing that maintenance later in the year so they could get through the cold weather months. And they bet that we would have a cooler June. Well, we didn't. We had a really hot June. If you remember, we had some of our highest June temperatures that we have ever seen, and that came back to bite TVA, because when those high temperatures hit, the system spiked. We were seeing a lot of usage out there, and we had a major asset that was down at that period of time.
And not only is it a major asset, it is the asset that produces the cheapest energy out of the entire portfolio. So you have to replace that with two major sources. TVA is using its own natural gas, or purchasing power off the open market. And both of those are a lot more expensive, aren't they?
That's right. The kind of peaker plants, they call it, which are the plants that you can turn off and turn on quickly, are natural gas plants. And so they burn a lot more natural gas when we're hitting a peak. And in this situation, that nuclear power, which is very, very cheap and very, very stable, was not available. So they had to fire up the gas plants and really run them full blast. Plus, they were buying power off the grid. TVA buys and sells power with other utilities. They buy and sell power with Alabama Power, in our territory. They buy and sell with Duke in the North Carolina area. They buy and sell with MISO over on the Tennessee River near the Memphis area. So they're transferring power back and forth. Well, they didn't have enough power to meet the needs, so they're buying it on the market. And it wasn't just hot here, it was hot all over the country. So that power was really, really expensive. So you had high natural gas prices plus high cost of purchase power without the availability of that nuclear resource that was there, that's usually our cheapest form of power. All of that coming together at one time was just made it extremely difficult in the month of June.
We've moved past June. We're into July and August, which are typically very hot months, very high usage, where people understand they usually have a bill that's a little bit higher during the summer. Let's talk about the way TVA has their rates set and the fuel cost adjustment, which is something people may hear about, and how those high prices in June are still impacting our bills today.
Right. There's basically two components to our bill from TVA. There is our base charge, which is the base kilowatt hour charge that they charge us any time of the year when we buy power. That base charge really hadn't changed in the last 5 or 6 years. Okay, it's been pretty stable and steady. But TVA adds on to that the fuel cost adjustment, which is a little adder of a few cents typically that they add to that base charge, and it's based on what the cost of power is. They do that at the beginning of every month, and they're guessing what the costs of that fuel are going to be and how much it's going to cost for them to produce that power. And so they add those few cents onto the base charge in order to recover those fuel costs. Typically, the fuel cost adjustment is 2 to 3 cents, a kilowatt hour. Because of the situation we talked about earlier, the lack of the nuclear plant at that time, the fact that we're having to buy high cost power off the grid, the fact that natural gas prices about tripled, that cost went up significantly over that period of time. And then TVA does not recover that all at one time, because if they did, then the month of July would have been even higher fuel cost adjustment. So it went from the typical 2-3 cents up to about 4 cents, but it's spread out over a period of time. And normally it's a couple of months that they're going to spread that out. So that means that right at the time we had a hot July and we've got a hot August, it's up now to 5 cents a kilowatt hour, which it's never been that high. In the 10 or 12 years that TVA has had a fuel cost adjustment, we have never seen anything like this kind of a spike. Hopefully, if the weather holds out and we don't have a major issue with some of the generation, when the weather starts cooling down in the fall, maybe in October, that'll start tailing down and we'll start to see that fuel cost adjustment come down and rates get more reasonable.
Because we do see from time to time with that fuel cost adjustment, again, it's not just an increase. If there's a month when TVA goes through and doesn't spend as much, whether it's really mild weather or whatnot, we have seen in the past that fuel cost adjustment will actually decrease from what it was estimated.
That is correct. Because every month is an estimate, okay? And they're guessing what the weather's going to be, what natural gas prices are going to be, what the power cost on the grid is going to be. They're guessing on all those things. And then at the end of that month, they look at what they actually were, and then they true that up and adjust the next month to catch up, or to give you a credit, if they overestimated it, it comes down less. If they underestimated it, which what they did in June, then it's more, and then it's spread out over a few month period of time.
So what we're saying is we can anticipate for a couple of more months, as those summertime fuel cost adjustment charges pass through, that fuel cost will probably be a little higher than we're used to. And then hopefully once we get to the fall months, the temperatures come down a little and everybody's usage naturally comes down a little bit, that those high bills should hopefully, we'll see some relief from those.
We should, but keep your fingers crossed. Nobody anticipated the kind of June we were going to have.
And one of the things I wanted to also share is that we've at Coleman Electric have shared a lot of information on our social media and website about ways people simple tips they can take to save on their power bill. Things as simple as just closing the windows and blinds in your house during the day can help keep your house cooler, allows your HVAC system not to work so hard. Sometimes people see scary headlines where it says set your thermostat to 80 degrees and things that clearly somebody that doesn't live in the Southeast wrote that story or headline. I like to use the analogy more of whatever is comfortable for you. Some people like 64 in their home, some people like 74. Whatever it is, if you can increase that temperature a couple of degrees and still be comfortable, you're going to see some savings on your next power bill. So that's a great step that people can take during these times.
Absolutely. I hate to sleep when it's really hot, but I can deal with it earlier in the evening and then turn it down before you go to bed. You know what I mean? After the sun's gone down, it's already cooler outside. That heat pump's not having to work quite as hard during that heat period of time from 5 o'clock in the afternoon to 6 or 7. Turn it down before you go, an hour or two before you go to bed, so it'll cool it off over a period of time. And then that way you're not running it all the time at that lower temperature.
Very good. Well, Tim, thanks for the time. Appreciate sharing a little update with our members.
Thanks.